Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of our First Year Experience podcast. Today, we are joined with Mr. Aaron Hinojosa from the Center for Diversity and Inclusion and the Dream Resource Center. As always, we are your hosts, Natasha Gonzalez, Jerry Galindo, and Nady Rodriguez. And we are joined today by another of our student success gurus, Mariela Angeles. Today, we're just going to talk a little bit about the Center for Diversity and Inclusion and Dream Resource Center. It's kind of a mouthful. But why don't you tell us a little bit about the department?
Mm-hmm. Well, hi everyone. First of all, thank you so much for inviting to this space to share a few things about the center. I think first it's important to highlight and honor some history. Our center was developed and established especially by student activism on campus back in 2016. It was called the Minority Affairs Council, and they protested on campus to have more visibility, especially for undocumented students. So that's a little bit of how the center was developed. But yeah, I'm excited to share a little bit more about what we do.
Okay. So I always see on V-Link more like events. So like the People Series, different trainings you guys have, the workshops you guys do. I just wanted to know a little bit about like what's the goal behind these, or like the whole goal of the center for.
So that's going to be a lot. As you mentioned earlier, just the department title is a mouthful, so you have to like take a breath between the two centers. But the center was developed, like I mentioned, especially because of student protesting to help raise awareness and education on what it meant to be undocumented or to have DACA. Our proximity to the border makes it very important. I mean, right now we can see a fence. Sometimes when I've given workshops, we've seen Border Patrol activity. So I think raising awareness on such an important student group on campus is one of the first priorities. The other one is just to remind students about not just the importance of diversity, but to keep in mind inclusive practices. One thing is having people represented in a table, in an organization, at a school. But the other part is making sure that they feel welcome, that they feel supported, that they feel valued, and that's the part that we try to do through workshops, through what you see, all the things you see on V-Link, on Messenger. If you check Messenger, hopefully you do. But currently we have it's a full staff of one, which is me, on both campuses, and then we've been doing everything virtual. And I also want to honor and highlight two student staff members, Kayla Thomas and Alonso Ponce. But we've been as a staff, just three of us since, I want to say January, with other student staff in the past who have either graduated or moved on. So yeah.
So where are you guys located on campus?
So we have two offices, one here in the Brownsville campus. We're in the Student Union, across from La Sala. And then in Edinburgh, we're in the University Center on the third floor. If you ask me about room numbers, I don't remember them, but we can look it up online and
we'll just ask around.
I'm really bad with numbers.
No worries. We could put it like in like the parentheses or the description. What else? Do you guys have any questions?
Yeah, I did want to ask a little bit more about, the actual, I guess, like practice of students coming in and saying like, this has happened to me. So really like, I know you had mentioned kind of like the goal and the reason for the organization coming into play. Do you guys see a lot of activity of like students coming in and having or sharing stories about things that they've endured on campus?
Yes, we get a range of experiences, especially because our reach is very wide. I think diversity is very general. The first thing that people think about diversity is race and ethnicity, right? Like skin color, which is, yes, one of the components on what makes an individual diverse or part of someone's identity. So in our workshops, we have these conversations and we try to inform individuals on just the different components of diversity. But more so this past year, because we were virtual, I would get emails on, hey, I want to go to UTRGV, but I'm undocumented. I'm thinking of two experiences. one student from California wanted to attend UTRGV, who has DACA. But we were talking about just checkpoints. A lot of people outside of the valley do not know that they exist. So that's one of the realities that I have to communicate, and to ensure, to inform people, here's what to expect. So that may be a deal breaker. Another student from Houston is actually coming in the fall, but he has DACA, and he was very aware of the checkpoints. Other things that have come up is students who either don't identify with their legal name, and they want to continue with either a name change or just want to be honored by their chosen name. So letting them know what processes can exist, or just how to inform your professor is really important. So those are a few examples of students either reaching out just this last year.
Oh, that's great. I do always wonder about that because I've met people here in Edinburgh, that have those same ideas or difficulties that they're kind of like trying to maneuver. And so I think what's really important from what you mentioned is that they're incoming students, and that's great because that's basically what we do is like aid freshman students, with their transition. So that's really cool. Like that you inform them about the checkpoints and stuff like that. Cause I hadn't even really thought about that. Um, Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
I was in the same boat. I was like, what do you mean? Some people don't know we have checkpoints. It's like whenever you go up north, it's like you have to pass through it.
Right,
So,
right.
yeah, it's something I guess we just always defaulted or have known about.
Right. And in one of the programs that we offer, LEAP, which is a diversity workshop, and if you want to check it out, it's on B-Link and on Messenger. We try to promote when they show up. We have them throughout the year. But we talk about privilege. I never thought about checkpoints like that because it's like, oh, well, I can just go back and forth. It's not a big deal for me. But as a person of privilege based on my U.S. citizenship, I don't have to worry about that, right? I'm safe. I can navigate the U.S., travel, get on a plane. But if a person does not have
Documentation.
their documentation, they're unable to do that. Their life looks different. They function. They navigate life differently. But I think those are some important things that we try to communicate and inform, and hopefully grow more empathy with people that come through our programs.
So I have a question, but I feel like it might be a mouthful or hard to answer, but I'd appreciate if you could just shed a little bit of light on how the Center for Diversity and Inclusion and the Dream Resource Center, how did they start? Were they before UTRGV was founded? Did the university see a need that wasn't being fulfilled for students that didn't feel necessarily comfortable? Yeah, that's all.
Yeah. It's always like, I understand, what's the question? It's a mouthful. I'm running out of breath as I'm in a mask and trying to speak and say all these things. Well, as I mentioned, the center was officially open, what was it, January 2019. Before that, there was, and there has always been departments and other organizations doing really good work. But within Student Union, Campus Rec, you all, right, doing other things without having the title of diversity and inclusion, right, or Dream Resource Center. So that work was already being done, but especially with the student activism on campus, that protest kind of sparked interest and need to develop something officially. We're hoping to expand soon. I think even having Ally Safe Zone training under our office, which is support and inclusion for LGBTQIA plus students, is very important. So more work is needed, more people to help is needed, right? So we're hoping to expand sometime soon. So if any donors are listening on the podcast, send us some cash. I'm just kidding. But yeah, so there was other work being done, Jerry. But officially, some of the projects came our way because by default. So.
I attended the DACA protest actually, and then I also I went to an Ally training. So I feel like specifically the allied training, I felt like was like really eye opening, and I wish it was like an orientation like thing. Like I wish every student had to go through that, just because like I found great value in attending. Even I, as someone who I thought was very like, yeah, I know everything about like the LGBT, I feel like I learned a lot from that training, and I feel like others would definitely like gain a lot of insight and like respect to their fellow like students, because I guess like I don't know, it's a place that I feel like gets great, it's like a gray area for a lot of different people, because like we live in the valley, and like I don't know, we're just very conventional here, and I don't know, Texas is a red state, but no, I'm like very, I feel like the things that the Center of Diversity and Inclusion has kind of made and like fostered, and like they kind of made it like a very nice relationship between UTRGV and like the LGBT. I think it's been very beneficial, and I definitely I hope that you all expand and like create more experiences and get more like I guess resources for future like like for future trainings and stuff, because like I feel like it'd be really good.
Yeah, well, thank you for that. One, for the compliment, right? But I'm also glad that you've attended some of these programs, because we do offer a range of things, but we also try to make sure to have in these spaces like students, faculty, and staff. That way, hopefully communicating and having a safe space where everyone's learning, right? I think you're never too old to learn. And even if you're in the community, as part of the community, there's different intersecting identities within each community. Like being undocumented, you could be trans, or you could be having a family, right? So like there's different identities. Even as myself as an openly gay person, I've had to kind of like learn about just internalized queer phobia, which is from my culture, learning, not knowing machismo is like embedded in my blood and my culture, having to break away from that. Because even in my own gay circles, there's like a devaluing of femininity. So even that, having to unlearn all that, and then trying to educate, I think is the other piece. But I'm glad that you've attended some of these things, and other people should. So
My question is, what has that been like, trying to develop the programming, knowing that like most of us are Hispanic, most of us grew up with this kind of like rhetoric, and the just like what we've been taught, like developing the programming to try and counteract that way of mindset in the past?
that is a great question, because I think we have to be more like intentional and strategic in how we plan things, because it's different, right? Like our culture in the valley is different, our population is different, geographically we're different. So there's some elements of like trying to educate that don't change, but I think the approach is different. I'm originally from the valley. I left for several years and then came back. And even one example that I usually give is this word microaggressions. When I first heard about it, I was like, what is this big word? I don't need big words in my life. But I think understanding what it is through examples and lived experiences, I've come to like, oh, I know what that is. I've said this, I've done that, I've heard this, I've seen people do. So I think breaking it down and repackaging it has been a way that I've seen it work. Not just for students, because I've been really surprised too, in like some faculty and staff who are just starting to learn, or who were not aware. But giving people grace and just allowing them to start where they are, I think has been another way to like try to help educate. And then like plan programming, right? Like do workshops that include that.
Yeah. It sounds hard, but
it has. It's been challenging, but I think it's been very rewarding. Like I mentioned, I think our collaborations have been across the university on both campuses, and then right before COVID-19, we started doing it in Harlingen because people were requesting it, and then we had to like change plans because it was all virtual. So I think kind of staying on our toes and like figuring things out. But that's been challenging, but also reassuring, because like y'all are sharing, there's benefit to it and there's a need. So it's been great. I cannot complain.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, like, that's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Especially because you guys are just like a little group, you know, and like you're making, like, whether you think about it or not, you guys are making a big impact, and like I'm pretty sure you've helped many people. So I just wanted to say thank you. That's
I mean, to think you're only 3, we're like
Yeah.
a lot, and it's like feels like we're struggling. So it's like, yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Many condolences.
Thank
condolences,
you.
no.
All the word, right?
I forgot how to speak.
No,
What's
thank
the
you.
word?
Big thanks. Big thanks.
Big things, big things. Do you guys have any questions?
So, yeah. So say like, does the center receive any like inquiries from students that are like, hey, I'm thinking of going to UTRGV, but I'm unsure if it's specifically a safe place for like me as an LGBTQ like person. Does that like ever happen, or do you all see like a big influx of students that are like curious about like how UTRGV is like handling LGBTQ plus people?
As you were asking, I was like looking through my like
All the
filing
files.
cabinet. Yeah, I was sorting through all the files. I don't remember specifically getting a question about a prospective student wanting to come to UTRGV. I'm hoping that if they're not, that they're seeing activity on our website, right? Like on our social media, on that there's people, right? And I think that's one of the first steps in building that environment is if people see themselves at the university. And if there's openly out, proud, supported LGBTQIA plus members, then I think that's one of the ways. So I haven't specifically received an email saying, hey, I'm trans, I'm trying to go there. Is there space for me there? I haven't, right? Like I'm not sure if orientation has or student activities or another department. But I hope also that they feel safe enough to approach us. I have received a lot of communication from current students, right? But I haven't from prospective.
I guess that's kind of like a good thing. I feel like UTRGV is kind of, at least from my perspective, the culture around UTRGV has always been that it's been like an accepting, open, diverse, and kind of like liberal university. Just from my opinion, like from my scope, like that's what I see UTRGV as. When I see other schools, other institutions around Texas, I think the complete opposite. I'm like, oh my God, that's the school that you want to go to if you're like diehard Christian and like MAGA. And I don't know. That's just my perspective, though. I definitely think UTRGV has done like so much. Even back in the UTPA days, I feel like it was always just a university that was for the like underprivileged and for the like for just the people that felt like they didn't want to leave home, but they wanted to like stay in the valley, embrace their culture, and like still be part of like a liberal and like open-minded like institution. But that's just been my opinion on it. So I feel like the whole DACA thing and like the whole Dream Resource Center, that's just another staple of like how the university has these resources for students that aren't documented, don't feel comfortable going to other institutions that don't have those resources available. I remember when I used to work at the Youth Student Union, I knew a lot of students that were undocumented and would utilize the DACA, like the Dream Resource Center at UTRGV. And I was always like, oh, like, you should go to another like institution, like another school, like if you want to so bad. And they're like, well, I can't because those schools don't have those resources. They simply don't. You have to know like a specific person under the table that'll be able to give you advice, and like there's no actual resource available. So I think it's great that I'm really happy with like both all the work that you all are doing with the Dream Resource Center specifically. I think that's just an area that is just like not a thing for other schools, and like we're one of the only schools that like has like those open resources for those students.
Thank you again. What about you all? What's the word on the street? What are y'all hearing? If I may ask. About like just outreach. Is the word getting out that like it's a safe space, or that we're doing stuff as a university? Is that the general consensus, similar to what Jerry was saying?
Well, I really like to advertise our university as being like really like they really prioritize students, I think. And I think like even the fact that you're asking us about our opinion and whether we've heard, like the consensus with the public, I think that that's something like our advisors do that with us, and they're like, "Hey, have you guys heard like what's the word on the street?" And I feel like there's not a lot of places that do that or that have that bridge that gap with the university and being a student there, because I think a lot of people attend university and they're not really a part of it. They're just like, getting their degree. But I feel like our university really like singles out each student and is like, you're a vaquero, and I don't know. I feel like it's a really beautiful campus, and not physically, but the way that everybody
Awesome.
just comes together, and you see it in games or anything like that where there's like a bunch of students. It's like it's a community, and with that it's attached to our actual community, because I think that yes, there's like a lot of diversity, but at the same time a lot of the students that are attending our university have grown up here, and so it's kind of something where you don't face that same discrimination, or maybe you do, but I think the university tries to minimize that, as well as the student population tries to make other people feel accepted versus feeling like they don't belong here. So I think that's what I've gathered from our university, especially my experience here, where things about myself that I was a little bit scared to identify prior to attending college, I feel like I've really opened up and gotten to know myself better, and been like, hey, that's something that people are doing. Like I kind of feel that way, or I identify as this or that. So I feel like I really like the university. I don't know if you could tell. I'm such a fangirl.
It's okay.
But I think it's because of that. And I've had the privilege of speaking with other people like in financial aid, and gotten to know a little bit more about like grants that we offer and stuff like that. And I just think there's not a lot of other places that I think would make the experience for students so enjoyable, or at least try to. So that's what I've taken. And I know other people in my inner circle, because I like to talk about the university so much, they're always like, yes, like I feel the same way about coming here, because I know with my transition into university, a lot of people would kind of make it seem like it was a bad thing to come to UTRGV, because I am from Edinburgh. So they're like, oh, you're going to stay in the valley. And it's like, what? I love the valley. I love that. Like, I know people here, and I welcome anybody to come here, because like being a native from here and liking it so much, and, hopefully making it like a city and a school that opens its arms to other people. I think that's the goal.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I think.
I don't know about Natasha and Mariana.
Yeah, I think like you just reminded me of something, because like it is, well, when I graduated in 2019, and it was kind of stigmatized, like where it's like, oh, you're staying here, okay, and it's like it's even worse for like the community colleges, like, oh, you're only going to TSC.
Yeah.
And it's just like, okay, why are you judging? Like
Right.
we're pursuing the education, but like once you're here, it's just like you realize how great of a school it is. And so it's like working here, going to school here, it's like the best. And I'm just like, why did people look down on this? You're like up north, like away from your family, away from the mole, away from the carne,
The tacos and
away from the tacos, and like you're probably being all upset, like in your little dorm by yourself. And I'm here with my family, I'm here with my friends. So I don't think it should be as stigmatized as it is, but
I feel like maybe they feel like they won't get the college experience, here. But honestly, I think like it has been a college experience, and especially like being able to work here. I feel like that has like opened me to like many more things, because I know like my freshman year I wasn't working, So I would literally just come to school and like leave, or like come to school, maybe go to the rec, and then leave. So I feel like working here has definitely like opened many doors. Um, and I do feel like our campus is pretty open, like to anyone. It's just that little like those little comments, you know, that people would make. Because again, I feel like they feel like they wouldn't get the whole experience. But I feel like here it's been the college experience, and like I've been close to home, so I've been able to like not miss out on little things with my family. But yeah, I think it's just been a really good experience.
Good. That's reassuring to know what 4 of you have very positive experiences. It's unfortunate though, individuals who leave and look down upon, right, those who don't, for whatever reason, right? We never know why people end up staying or leaving or whatever. But I think it's important to investigate why that is. Why is there less of a value that's placed? I think it's that we internalize messages that we see in the news from other people, that the valley this, the valley that. So then we believe that, right? That's one of the topics that we try to cover a little bit in our LEAP workshop, is when we internalize negative messages. So then we start believing them. So then we start repeating them to other people. And then it's like, wait a minute, this is amazing. What are you talking about? Right? So I think it's important to investigate where that's coming from people. Because then that's something we have to work on, right?
I feel like that's also a part of like, oh, I can't do anything in the valley. Like outside is where like everything is, like all the opportunities and like whether it's job opportunities or like, you know, maybe that certain university has like more opportunities. But I feel like we do, like we, and again, like they wouldn't know because they've never been here, you know, like because they left. But I think like we have the opportunities and stuff. So I think it's just something that, like you said, we internalize stuff like, oh, the valley's bad, or the valley's this, the valley's that, and that's what stays in their head, and they're like, I need to get out,
right?
You know.
Or a denial, a rejection of the culture. So now we need to assimilate to not valley or whatever.
This can be a whole nother conversation.
Yeah, this can be another podcast.
Join us next week for the
no joke, but if you would be willing to come back, I feel like there's so much more to unpack. Not that this is like a training day, but I just feel like key terms, like everything they're just so important. And with the whole like look down on the valley, I think like growing up we didn't see as much representation, or we saw like well, like for me personally, I don't know if other people felt this way. My dad doesn't speak English, so we would watch like dubbed Spanish like movies, and everything was like in Spanish. So it's like you either saw a channel that was only in Spanish, or you would see channels that were like only English that didn't really represent your community. And so I think when people are going to university, they're not seeking those opportunities, that understand that we're a really special area that, you know, has both, and that it's so embedded in who we are and the way that we were raised and our culture. And I feel like the Valley is offering those opportunities to people that are like bilingual, and not just like English and Spanish, but anybody that wants to come from anywhere else. Like we have space for you and we love you. So just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah, and just going back to that topic one more time. No, I just wanted to say, like, clearly, like, I'm from here, so I wouldn't know about, like, how other people feel, like, maybe if they're from San Antonio or something, right? But, you know, maybe it's just a thing about, like, if someone's from San Antonio and they're like, oh, you're gonna go to this university, like, you get me? Like, what if it's like that everywhere? Yeah. Like, if they're in, like, another state, they're like, oh, you're gonna go to this state's, like, why don't you leave? Or, you know, that's maybe it's something that just those people in that certain area feel. So they're like, okay, well, I'm going to get out of here because I don't want to be here. Or, you know, and then maybe those people that left look down on them and they're like, well, you're staying here, but they're like somewhere else, you know, just a thought.
What I was going to add to that is, I think, well, I can't remember who said it, but about like representation, right? Which is one of the components, not to like shameless plug again, but we talk about representation, how important that is. But there was a simple activity that we did many years ago, as I think it was in grad school, but to kind of think about our community, right? Think about their valley, and then identify how people see it, how people perceive it. And all I landed on was like people see in the news and they immediately think the valley, so they think the border, and they think that something's wrong, and they think like immigrants are like what are like all this negative association with the valley. And then I think it's a very similar narrative that is painted not only in like news but also like in movies, like a border town, right? Like violence and things. But I'm like, there's so much more to that, right? So like I think it's like, how can we interrupt those main narratives that are not 100% accurate? And I think that's very important to then, how can we change that, right? Like through our students, even just like working on our campus pride, and like valley pride is another big thing. Because if people are leaving, not placing the value that we all agree that is needed, right? There's a disconnect there, right? So piecing that together and trying to not fix it because it's a bigger problem, right? But then interrupting that, and then how to interrupt that, like through a podcast, through a YouTube series, right? Through like Instagram posts of like, look, we have trailblazers in the valley too, not just like in Hollywood, right? But I think that's very important as well.
And I feel like I have like a certain, I think also sometimes I have like that little like, oh, you came here, right? So because
like still.
Okay, so I had a friend, right, that came, or that I think might still be here, but I mean, if he's listening to this, I'm sorry, right? But okay,
no
so
names.
he's from no names. He's from Poland, right? And he got a scholarship, and like he's here, and I'm like, out of all the places you came here, you know? But you get me, like, but other people don't see that. Like, what if they're like, wow, like I'm coming here, you know? Like they're excited that they're here, you know? But yeah, I just wanted to add that because that was my little like reaction, like out of all places here, you know?
And I'm glad that you're sharing that and that you're being vulnerable, just because I think it's important, like for you to do that work of like, why do I say that? And where does that come from? Because I think like balancing like pride, shame, and fear is like, it's a lot, right? So it's like, I think doing that self-assessment of like, am I picking this up from other people, from the news, from my friends, from blah? Because, or do I believe that? And I think if it's not believing that, then it's like, am I just regurgitating what I'm hearing? That like internalized. Wow.
Yeah, because I'm a really like strong believer in like whatever you see, whatever you hear, whatever you like, you know, experience, like that's gonna be like all you think about, all you like, that's how your actions are gonna come out. You get me? So like if you think negatively, right, negative things are gonna come out. Positive are gonna come out. Or like, you know, about the university, like, okay, if people are telling you negative things, you're gonna be like, yeah, no, I don't want to be here. You know, or like, well, I think very highly of this person, so like if he's telling me like, okay, then I won't, like I'll leave too, because like he's telling me, so it must be true, you know, type of thing. But yeah.
One of the similar kind of thoughts, if anything, when I first came out many years ago, back in my day, so people would ask me, it's like, oh, you're not going to dress up as a girl though, right? I'm like, oh no, I'm not that gay. So like I didn't realize how damaging and hurtful that is, because I was already I was like a robot, like just regurgitating like, be a man, boys don't cry, don't show emotions, like like all of that then took form in that. So like I think now, like as I'm more aware of it, I continue to challenge that, because it's many years of like getting that message of be a man, be tough, boys don't show emotions, all of that, because then I think it's also can resonate to other identities, right? Like a woman can be masculine, and that's okay, and that doesn't mean they're lesbian or whatever. It just means that's who they are, right? Or if they do, then great, so what? So I think challenging all those things that we picked up somewhere along the way, we learned these things, right? So that's also a very important tool to continue to challenge and to use, right?
Yes, I agree.
I'm gonna go home and do a lot of introspection.
Hopefully it's not too exhausting, because it can be exhausting, especially if you investigate and you're like, I've been doing this my whole life. So it can be very scary. I've gone into a dark place many times, but I think I've learned how to balance that. Like, you know what? Turn it off, go take a nap, go play a video game, go to the gym, and then come back to it later, right? Like, it's a lot to undertake. I do hope that the programs that we offer, those are some of the spaces to do that work. I think that's important too. They're like mini therapies a lot of times, because I also think it's important to be in community with people that not necessarily think like you, but are trying to do that work too. Because it's scary. It's scary to like challenge the norm.
Yeah.
Like, that's scary.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's even, like, in my opinion, like, my culture, right? I feel like we're very, like, family oriented and very, like, I need to please my parents type of thing. So that's like a whole another podcast. No, but that would be like a whole other, like, well, I don't want to disappoint them. And, like, you know, I feel like, in my opinion, right, my parents are in my head. So it's like, okay, well, if I do this, like, I need to think about my parents. Like, how would my parents feel? How would this? And in a way, you're not living for yourself, you know? Like, you're kind of like, well, I don't want to disappoint them, you know? But they're very, like, your parents are in your head, you know?
On that note,
and they influence you.
Yeah, we're having a speaker for our second year experience conference who's gonna talk to us about exactly that. Like, how do we like respectfully confront our parents about, like, not being that, like, influential in the decisions we make, because sometimes you do, like, depend on them. Like, if they're paying for my school, like, you feel more restricted in, like, what you can and can't do. So it's kind of like navigating that. So yeah, we had this conversation and it's like, oh my god, it's coming back.
So when is it, so I can be here?
Honestly, you'll probably be working, so you will hear it. But yeah, I think that would be another great podcast to talk about the whole conversation, our experiences. Does anyone have any more questions? Or
no, I could add so much to all of that, but like you said, it's so much. So I'll just, I'll just wait on that one. But no, for sure, I pertaining to everything that's happening right now, especially with COVID, and students now more than ever are feeling out of place, scared, especially first year students that are coming. You know, some students might have had the worrisome of, like, being in a university just in general, and now with COVID and getting back into how things are going, I'm really happy that these resources exist. And I for sure have gained so much from them, and I'm sure our fellow first years will gain a lot more, and hopefully with more backing and resources, they're able to attend just more events in general on campus. So I thank you so much, Aaron, for joining us here. I really appreciate it, and hearing your perspective on everything has been, like, very eye-opening. So thank you again.
Thank you. Thank you to all of you for inviting us. First years, welcome. We hope you enjoy it. Visit us. Let us know how we can help. If you have any suggestions, we're open to that. But we're glad you're here.
Yes, very. Sorry, Natasha.
No, I was just gonna say that I guess we're wrapping up. Thank you guys for listening. We'll see you in the next one.
Thank you.
Bye.